The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi there, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining us for this week's final session. And we have one of the best till last with Mary Beth O'Neill. Before I do anything though, can I please ask that you raise your hand in the air? Can stop cheating. Like you raise, no, wait, I haven't said anything yet. You're raising your hands and I haven't even asked you to raise your hands. So everyone put their hands down again. All right. And now I'm going to ask, I'm joking. So you can hear me. Good and gold. Thank you very much for raising your hands. Very much appreciate it. I'm going to put the hands down now. You're reading my mind now by putting your hands up. So I'm going to play a trick on you one day and say, can you raise your hands if you're dot dot dot? And those of you that already put your hands up are going to be very embarrassed. So anyway, we have a fantastic session today on leading with backbone and heart. As always, I would love you to jump on the Facebook wall. Thank you so much. We're really building up a lot more traction, much more, many more coaches are now jumping on there and contributing, asking questions. There's a good dialogue happening. Please do take the time to do that. It's a great way to network with coaches. It's a great way to speak directly with presenters, and bear in mind that these are people that are driving our industry forward. For right now, they are the industry leaders, and into the future, they're going to be growing, and they'd be great people to be friends with as you grow in your coaching journey, especially if you take certain sessions and learn from them, and there's certain elements of them that you want to develop further. It's a good place to connect one-to-one with the presenter. So I encourage you to jump on there. If you are on Twitter, please tweet as much as you can. Any learnings, the more that you tweet that you're learning about from the best in the world, obviously your potential clients and your prospects and whatnot, they will see that you are learning from the best. So they learn from you, which means that they're going to be learning from the best, which is pretty cool. So you can tweet using the hashtag WBEX 2013. It's not WeBEX. People call it WeBEX. It's WBEX 2013. So it's WBECS 2013. Cool, guys. Okay, so without further ado, I would like to introduce you to Mary Beth O'Neill. Mary Beth is a leadership consultant, executive coach, author, leader of the Executive Coach Training Series, and owner of MBO Consulting. For the past 25 years, Mary Beth has coached a range of leaders from CEOs to senior vice presidents, directors, as well as senior managers. She works with executives and their teams, as well as one-to-one with leaders. Her passion and specialty is to help clients leverage their leadership development to produce bottom line business results. Some of her clients have included Nike, if you're in the States, Primera, Blue Cross, Microsoft, Virginia Mason Medical Center, REI, Marguerite Casey Foundation, the Swedish Hospital System, TransAlta Utilities Corporation Group, and so on and so forth, as well as Amazon. She was a grateful faculty member for 11 years in the Master's Program in Leadership and Organization Development at the Leadership Institute of Seattle, LIOS, and currently she is an adjunct faculty member for the LIOS graduate program at Saybrook University. She also leads the Executive Coach Training Series for experienced organizational consultants and HR professionals. Mary's book, Executive Coaching with Backbone and Heart, is one of the best-selling executive coaching books of all time on Amazon.com, and it has been translated now into 5 languages. So, as you can see, Mary has a huge wealth of experience to bring to this session today, and so it is with great pleasure that I introduce you to Mary Beth O'Neill. Over to you, Mary Beth.
Thanks, Ben. Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining me on this webinar. I just want to let you know that I'm getting over some laryngitis, so I have a little bit of a dry cough. Please bear with me. I might mute if I have a kind of a coughing fit, but I'll be back again. There's nothing wrong with your speakers, and or I may have to chomp on a cough drop or two. But I want this to be a very interactive webinar, and so after I give you an overview of what I'm going to talk about, I'm going to be asking for your input 5 or 6 times, and then during the session as well, we're going to have 2 different question and answer periods. So this may go a little over an hour and a half, and so for those of you who want to hang in there, we'll take as much time in the question and answer as you would like. And what we're going to cover is Uh, whoops, Ben. I'm not able to control my screen here.
Oh,
Um,
bear with me
I'm
two
not.
seconds.
Oh, there we go.
Are you good? Are you good as gold? That's
I
yeah,
seem
you're
to be
fine.
good. Yes.
Yep. Okay,
Thank
no worries.
Great. Okay. So what we're going to do is talk about how leaders can integrate their leadership development, their team development, and their organization results into a leadership vision that literally fits on one page. That's right. It fits on one page. And this is an example of a typical leadership vision. As you can see, it's not 10 or 20 pages. It's not even one or two paragraphs. It's a series of bullet points that are all interrelated and that an executive has created to guide them through the next whatever time period is urgent and important to them. It could be 8 months, it could be 18 months of their work. So as I go through this session, I'm going to highlight these different areas that are on this page so you can see how they all work together. And I want to give you a sense of a couple of client stories where I've used this kind of leadership vision when it was really urgent and needed. So, and first of all, I want to talk about the kind of results that they were having at the time. As you can see, not good, and also what the team interactions were like. So one of my clients was a new CEO in a situation he joined knowing it was a turnaround situation. The organization was absolutely bleeding money. And the team was not adapting to the need to change, and they weren't changing fast enough. They were sabotaging this new CEO, and the top team who he was working with were affable but not effective. Second group organization was the leader was a director of marketing, which had just been put into a new operational role. And unfortunately, it was the least performing division in the company at the time that she was put into it. It had a lot of problems. The team members were in conflict, and which was disrupting the whole team. And unfortunately, because of the dire situation of that division, the boss of this leader was questioning whether they had made a right choice in putting her in this role. A third client was an organization which was in the midst of having to change how they do business in terms of their relationship to their customer in the marketplace. And if they didn't change their strategy, they were going to be left behind. The team on for these folks they were leadership team that really didn't realize the depth of their need to change, and they were not creating outside of the box solutions. This was another new leader and knew that he probably only had a year to turn this around, or he probably wouldn't be in that position anymore. So these were all very bright, dedicated leaders, and the circumstances were such that it was driving this huge amount of challenge for them and their organization. When there is this kind of challenge, it's really good to create a leadership vision because it's one way for these leaders to get grounded and to help them out. But there are challenges just in creating a leadership vision itself. And one is to, and I mentioned this in the pre-summit conference, the challenge to maintain a balance of backbone and heart. And what I mean by backbone is to state clear positions, know what your position is, and state it clearly, and not be pressured to change just because you're feeling outside pressures. It's really to have the ability to take bold stands and the stamina to see them through. And heart is the ability to stay connected to others, even when things are tough and even when they're being tough, even when the team is doing things like sabotaging or moving too slowly. And it's the ability to stay in touch with people as they're challenged to adapt to these big changes and not to withdraw from them or not to pander to them as well. So I'm going to just quickly go through how you can lose balance. If you want to learn more about this, you could go to the pre-summit conference because I spent a half hour on this. But just quickly to talk about how you can lose the balance of backbone, knowing your position and stating it clearly, and heart, staying connected to the others, because some of these team challenges and leader challenges are because both the leader and the team have fallen out of balance. So this vertical line is the backbone line, and rather than stating positions clearly, one can become too rigid in your position or too vague, and people don't know where you stand. And the horizontal line is the heart line, and to be out of whack in terms of staying connected with others, you can become too distant or cut off. And on the other extreme, you can become overly attentive. So as I mentioned, you can get more of this in the previous pre-summit webinar that I did, and also like what do you do? There are some anchoring actions to do once you fall out of balance. But it takes backbone and heart to create a leadership vision. So we're going to be spending the rest of the webinar on how to create that vision. So I want to talk about the 5 elements of a leadership vision. And the first one is the business imperative. This is the over the horizon, we're not doing this now imperative. This is the stretch. So a leader is sending an organization into an area, a way to do things that they've not done before. People are going to step back and say, whoa, are you kidding me? You want us to what? And usually there's some kind of paradox embedded in it. And I'm going to give an example of one soon. The other element of a leadership vision is a culture shift. There's some kind of needed culture shift in the organization, and it's usually stated as a from to. There are ingrained patterns that the leader is now seeing that the organization needs to move from, and they need to move to a new way of thinking about their business, or a new way of relating to each other or relating to others. And so part of leadership vision is to identify the from, the old that they're moving from, and the to, the new cultural state that the leader wants them to move to. Now, these two are related to each other because it usually takes the cultural shift to create and make real the business imperative that the leader is seeing over the horizon. And both of these are the big picture items in the leadership vision. So the next 3 are what the leader is managing every day. So the business results are the definite, what do we need to make happen in this next year? It's the what of the business imperative. And I'm going to talk more about what defines a business result. Team interactions. These are the key interactions that will make the difference, that will create these business results, that will send the organization closer to actually accomplishing the business imperative. I'm talking about 4 to 6 key team interactions, 4 to 6 max. Again, remember, this whole vision is going to wind up on one page. And then there's also the leader interactions. Same thing, only 4 to 6 interactions. These are the high leverage interactions that a leader is going to do either with their team, with their own boss, if they're not at the top of the organization, with others across the organization, that are going to help their team create the business results. So as you can see, these all are interrelated. There are the blue in the sort of the big picture where the leader sees that they're moving, and then in the sort of purplish boxes are the items that they need to be managing every day. So Ben, I've lost the oh, here we go. Okay. So an example of business imperative. Okay, increase revenue. Well, that not yet is a business imperative, because of course everyone wants to increase revenue. But okay, now we're gonna now the leader would be saying, this is an example of one that the leader actually did. Increase revenue while maintaining quality. Now, if the leader tells the team that, the team's probably thinking, oh, okay, I get that. We're known for quality and we want to do better on the bottom line and maintain quality. Okay, I'm there. All right, I'm with you. And decreasing product cycle time. At that point, a team is probably, and this is where it's a business imperative, as opposed to just, oh, let's just, do a good job. Because probably the team at this point is going, whoa, wait a minute. You want us to increase revenue while maintaining quality and decrease the product cycle time? Are you kidding me? How is this going to happen? Now, leaders these days are often creating business imperatives with this kind of apparently contradictory or opposing energies that are right in the business imperative. But these days, it's almost a requirement. I mean, in the 60s and 70s, you can get away with doing one or two of these. But these days, just to be able to play on the playing field in the marketplace, you usually have to have this kind of high paradox, apparently, business imperative. So this is the kind of thing that will take a team's breath away. So now that the leader has their attention, then it's to actually talk about specific business results. And they need to be translated, this business imperative needs to be translated into very tangible results that are going to happen in this time frame, 8 months to 18 months. And they need to be in one or more of these categories. Quantity, how much, time, usually how little, like reduce the cycle time. Revenue, or really any money category. It could be revenue, it could be decreasing costs, it could be percentage of profit, or quality, how well, to what standard are we going to be doing something. So as an example of these kinds of business results, quantity, increasing how many customers an organization has. Time, like in this business imperative, reducing product cycle time by 3 months as an example. Money, revenue, increase the revenue for $40 million over the past year. And quality, we need to be doing all of this and maintain our top 3 national performance in terms of durability. So these are an example of business results. An example of a culture shift. Remember, I was talking about from to. So here's an example, a couple examples of from to. For example, a from, like a lot of organizations have been quality focused, but not necessarily financially focused at the same time. So it seems as though quality, in the old days, it seemed to be quality versus revenue. And now they need to be thinking about quality and a financial focus. So that stretches people's minds as to what's possible. The second one is how it's going to happen. So, the first one is a cultural shift in thinking. The second one is a cultural shift in acting. So this was actually a couple of clients I've had recently have actually put this down as their culture shift because it was so important to be able to reach the business imperative. And that is that all the real important conversations were happening outside team meetings, and now they needed to move to open dialogue in the meeting, and that was going to be an actual real culture shift. It wasn't going to happen just by telling people to do it, because they were always reverting back to conversations outside the meeting. So in terms of accomplishing a business imperative and these very specific business results, of course, why executive coaches and business coaches get involved is that these results don't happen totally on their own. They need to happen through the leader and team interactions that they're having with each other and others. So in terms of developing a leadership vision, this is where the creativity really takes off. Identifying simple but high leverage leader and team behaviors that will make all the difference and produce the business results. So I'm going to spend the rest of the webinar talking through how leaders can do this kind of visioning and how coaches can help leaders do this kind of visioning. So for now, I want to get a reading of the group today and do a quick poll. So first, I'd like you to look at these 5 elements. And when you look at these and how they're integrated, and I'm actually going to be talking more about leader and team interactions, but as you see how they're integrated, do you currently work with all 5 of these as you either if you are a leader or as a coach to help leaders create their vision for their work or their teams, or do you work with just some of them? So if you could answer the poll, you can see that, do you have a way to integrate these elements? And there are 4 possible answers. So Ben, could you take it from here?
No problem, Mary Beth. I've launched the poll. And if everybody could take just a few moments to answer the question, that would be awesome. Okay, we've already got 40%. Thank you very much. 50%. Quick on the draw today. Okay, we're up to 65%. Thank you very much. Maybe give you another 30 seconds. Thank you very much. Got another 20 seconds left to vote. Okay, we're almost up to 80% now. 85%. Okay, last 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm closing off the poll now. Thank you very much. Okay, and the results are as follows. We have with 47% partially, which is the top one, I integrate a majority of these. With 21%, no, that's why I'm at this webinar. And 20% yes, and it keeps a leader and team focused. And in last place was just 2 of them with 11%.
Okay, thank you. And so now I want to get another poll to get a sense of, let's see, this would be for everybody but the 20% who said yes. So if you're not integrating or helping a leader integrate all 5, what are you thinking you may miss? Which one is costing you the most by not integrating into the others? And I've got at the bottom here a little cheat sheet if you are having a hard time remembering. But I've got them listed here as well. So, Ben, could you lead us through the poll?
Yes, sure. The poll is now live, Mary Beth, and we have coaches voting. And I'm going to give everyone about 45 seconds to answer this. So thank you very much. We're up to 40%.
Just add one more thing. I think you can answer this either by a gut feel, or you may actually have evidence of how it's costing the organization. Could be either.
Okay, got another 15 seconds left, and then we are closing the poll. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. I'm going to close off the poll and release the results. Okay, so I'll run just from the top down to the bottom. The business imperative is 18%. The cultural shift is 33%. The business results is 20%. The team interactions was 18%. And the leader interactions was 11%. It's quite a reasonable mix.
Yes, okay. So now I'd like you to just use your chat option. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. And if you could answer the question, how? So, in terms of, this is costing you in one of these areas, if you could just quickly say which area, and at the bottom again, I have a cheat sheet. BI is for business imperative, CS is cultural shift. And if you could just list which of the item you think you're missing the most, it's costing the most, and how is this costing you if you're the leader, and how is it costing your clients if you're the coach? So, and Ben, if you could read off some of the answers.
Yes, sure, no problem at all. We have CS, 2 slow changes. CS, so cultural shift, not sustainable, wasted effort. Cultural shift again, suffers affects turnover and success on the business imperative. Leader interactions, we have slow growth. Missing a vital action, a bit of spinning, different points of focus. Again, cultural shift, hidden agendas, not what is said publicly. Cultural shift again, the change is not sufficiently anchored. Without positive, integrated leader interactions, loss of credibility, no urgency to change. Business imperative, need to help leaders think bigger. As a coach, I lose the opportunity to expand services. Cultural shift again, people pay lip service but don't ingrain it and follow through with ongoing decisions and actions. Team interactions, just stop me whenever you want me to stop. I can keep going for some time. Team interactions can hold back the ability of the leader to implement. In my last role, leaders result from their teams without being willing to provide leadership or sponsorship to affect change. Makes room for changing the objective. HR compartmentalizes my intervention with others in the organization. It controls interactions and does not allow integration of different vendor efforts. Cultural shift. We have ignoring barriers to higher productivity. Do you want me to carry on? This probably about another
If you
50.
could do a couple on business results.
Okay, business results. Personal performance low. Business results, losing opportunities to grow as a company.
Okay, thank you. Oops. Okay, there we go. Okay, well, this is great because it's showing really a whole variety of hidden losses or costs if the leader is not integrating all these elements. Because I have found that these really are the elements that, if integrated, will create a change that is not one, how to say this, it's not incremental. It really is a big step up. It's like they've gone from going from one plane all up to a higher plateau. And I'm going to actually give you at the end of the webinar what the results were for these 3 clients I mentioned at the beginning. So I can't stress enough how important it is to have all 5 of these elements. And once the leader has talked about a business imperative that really is, over the horizon, a cultural shift that needs to happen, and what are the specific business results that need to be accomplished in this time frame, 8 to 18 months, then what's really critical is to focus on the leader and the team interaction. This is what is going to create the outcomes in all the other categories. So now we're going to focus on how to identify key leader and team interactions that will make all the difference. And I have found that this will either power the whole leadership vision if well done, or if it's not done carefully, it will render the whole effort worthy of collecting dust. So this really is the key, is how to help the leader identify what are going to be those 4 to 6 actions that the team and that they themselves are going to make. And what I want to do is give you a feel, a little experience of how I work with leaders in having these conversations, and how the conversation flows and the kinds of questions I ask them. And I'm actually going to use you all together here on the webinar. You'll be my stand-in for the leader. So let's start. And this is how I start with leaders. They have identified, for example, this set of business results. And let's say they've also identified the business imperative that I showed you earlier, that they need to increase revenue while maintaining quality and decrease cycle time. And you can see how that is all worked into these business results. And they need that culture shift, because in the past their team has only been thinking of quality And now they need to be thinking of quality and revenue. And they've been having all the conversations, all the real conversations in one-offs outside the meeting, and they need to have more open dialogue in the meeting. Okay, so this is the kind of team, this is the situation that you have, leaders. Now I'll put you in that role now. So here you are, you've identified these business results and that business imperative and culture shift. What kind of new interactions would a team need to be doing to set up to really step up their game and produce these results? And I really do mean interactions. I don't mean this is not going to be a task list. This is not going to be, well, I need to hire new salespeople, or I need to get a quality assurance person, or I need to lay off. Those would all be tasks. I'm focusing on how is the team going to be interacting either with the leader or with themselves or with others. So I'd like you to now brainstorm. And if, again, use your chat option there and just brainstorm what are some team interactions. And this really is a brainstorm, anything goes, and we'll see what we collect. And Ben, as they come in, if you could just report out a variety of kinds of team interactions that people are brainstorming.
Okay, I'll just give people a little bit of time to do that. Okay, sales and research and development, honest, strategy session with leadership, what is our vision, regular full attendance meetings, more resources and people, focus on the topic at hand and not distract the team with broad, unfocused, unrelated topics, accountability, follow-up and check-ins, share information about failures as well as successes along the way, collaboration, challenge each other, have a party, it's Friday, increased and more clear conversation with team and leader, leader, listen to strengths and limitations, team brainstorming sessions, become more assertive and proactive in cross-departmental meetings, define clear, I can't read that, sorry, term norms, no, sorry, Mary. Can you write, Mary? Would you be able to write that again? Define clear terms, norms for behaviors in meetings. Get help from consultant. Share with leader. I think that's what it says. Ask for help from peers. Sales teams and customer service. Fuller conversations and communication.
Just a couple more.
Okay. Hold each other accountable for revenue increases and cross-functional meetings with sales, product development, quality and design, etc.
Okay. Thank you. All right, this is exactly how I start with leaders, and this is exactly what they give me. This kind of diversity of response, and I've just been quickly, grabbing some of the ones that Ben reported out. And what I want to do is give you a sense of that. You have given two different kinds of answers, and one of them I would call categories. It's a big category. Like, for an example, being honest with each other, or accountability, or collaboration. All of those, even challenge each other, is a big category. Another one was leader, a leader listening to others. Those are categories. And people often, at least at first, think in these big categories. In fact, a lot of organization talk is in these big categories. And often people think that they know what each other is talking about by talking about in these big categories. But as it turns out, particularly when a leader is developing a vision, the big categories are actually less effective when you're trying to hone in on 4 to 6 of these leader and team interactions. And the reason why is that everybody has a different view of what those categories really mean. For example, honest. Well, honest about what? Honest when? Accountability about what and when and what would it look like? The same with collaboration. Here's another. I've just pulled a bunch of categories that people often are talking about, and all of these are great for categories. These are the kinds of things that you would think, as well as the ones that you've mentioned, which might get at the issues that this leader with these business results would need to do. And like I say, this is exactly what leaders give, these big categories. It's almost impossible to think about the second group. Some of you have given them to me. And that is what I would call specific behaviors, specific, observable, measurable behaviors. One that you gave was focus on the topic at hand. So for example, if you were sitting in a meeting with this leader and team, and they had an agenda, and then you listened to them talk, you'd be able to tell whether they were focusing on the topic at hand or whether they were off the topic at hand. Another one that's very specific is ask for help from your peers. All right, so you'd know whether they were doing it or whether they were not doing it. Now, so I want to really underscore, nobody gave a wrong answer here, because like I say, this is exactly where it starts in a conversation with leaders. People begin by thinking of the broad categories. So that's what you want to do. You want to capture those broad categories, because embedded in those broad categories are these very specific behaviors. So and again, this is how I work with leaders. I want to give us all a chance to work on getting more specific. So I'm just choosing two of them here. One is take more initiative, and the other is manage conflict collaboratively. So let's say that of all these categories, the leader in a conversation with them, we'd be further having a conversation about, well, which one, of all these categories you've mentioned, which are the ones that you really think are going to get you to where you need to go if your team were to do more of these? And let's say they said, well, I think they need to take more initiative, and I think they need to manage conflict collaboratively. Remember, there was that one client I had that I talked about at the beginning where there was a lot of team conflicts. So they might say that. So when you look at these two, and in terms of just being two categories, this is now where I work with a leader to get more specific and to really define what are the observable behaviors in take more initiative and manage conflict more collaboratively. And again, remember I said that people talk, organizations speak as in categories all the time, and yet you don't always, maybe you're not really talking about the same thing. That is so clear, particularly in take more initiative. I've heard leaders say things like, when I actually say, so what would that look like? They say, well, take more initiative. People should just know what that looks like. I mean, these are high level people. I mean, the people reporting to me are executive VPs. They should be taking initiative to begin with. And yet, when you talk to the executive VPs, they're saying things like, take more initiative. I would love to take more initiative. When I do take more initiative, I get slapped down for it. It's not the kind of initiative they seem to be looking for. So this is why it's so important to actually define what they mean by these categories. So if you could, and this is what I tell my clients, think about when you're trying to figure out what the specific behaviors are, and I hope some of you are kind of jotting down little notes off to the side, like what would I say take more initiative looks like, and what does manage conflict more collaboratively look like? Because imagine that you've got a scientist with a clipboard and a pen, and whatever you say is a specific behavior, that's what's on their clipboard, and they're going to now go and sit in on all your meetings, and they cannot, based on their own assumptions or their interpretations about initiative or collaborative conflict, check it off. No, it has to be exactly as you've described it, and so that they can tell without interpreting whether your team was doing it or not. It's that level of specificity. So let's take one of them and see how you do with it. And this, again, is exactly what I do with leaders, is pushing them and challenging them to come up, because this is a way to customize to their own situation. And that's really the goal in creating this kind of a leadership vision. So what would it look like? Specific, observable, measurable. Yep, you could check it on the clipboard or not. Where it would be take more initiative. And if you could put some what you're brainstorming into the chat option, and then Ben, if you could report some of those out.
Okay, just give everyone a chance to do that. Okay, we have invite frontline workers to submit improvement opportunities to cycle time reduction. When you have a problem, come to me with 2 solutions to that problem for us to discuss. Review and issue and come to table with possible solutions. Bring suggestions for cycle reduction to weekly team meetings. Offer solutions and help to others. Bring me one new idea on how to improve business a week. Purpose ideas in leadership meetings. Always come to a meeting with a solution and some ideas.
Okay, just one more.
Okay, initiative. Make a formal proposal.
Okay, great. Boy, those are so. I got to tell you, you've done better than any leader I've ever worked with. Congratulations. So interesting how you've cycled around one particular way to do this. So, they all look like they could wind up on that clipboard in terms of, you know, you'd be able to tell whether people were doing that, right? You'd be able to tell whether they were offering solutions, bringing one new idea, coming to the meeting with an idea, having 2 solutions. Those are all things you could actually observe. So you did great, and let's have you take a try at managing conflict more collaboratively. What could that look like in specific behavior? Can you read some of those off, Ben?
Okay, no problem. Ask P&L to change places. Reduce conflict in meetings. Learn conflict management techniques as a team. Rotate, share RESP for calling out conflicts and initiating use of techniques. Poll all parties involved for their views and intentions. Deal with the person involved first. Never interrupt when someone is stating his opinion or her opinion. Listen to others' ideas before offering your own. Determine if conflict is with person or with idea. Take a position and defend it, but only in an agreeable way. Decide together what the response looks like. Keep working together until you reach an agreed upon win-win.
Okay, one more.
Increased active learning across the group.
Okay, thank you. All right, now what I want you to do, Ben, see if you can help us out with this. I'm going to name a couple of these, and I want you to, I'm going to have you vote. So I'm going to have you raise a hand if you think it's a category, and then I'm going to give you a chance to vote if you don't think it's a category, if you think it's a specific behavior, and then I'm going to give you a chance to raise your hand around that. Is that something we can do, Ben?
We certainly can.
Okay, so in terms of one of you said reduce conflict in meetings. Is that for all of you who think that that is a specific behavior, could you raise your hands? And Ben, can you get a sense of like how many hands are raised?
I can indeed. We have about 6%.
Okay, and raise your hand if you think that's a category.
Wait 2 seconds. If I have to put everyone's hands down first. So I'm just going to put everyone's hands
Okay.
down. You have to give me a little second. So I've just put everyone's hands down. So you can you vote again, please, if you had just voted.
Now, this is voting if you think it's a category.
Okay, so we've got about 60% there.
Okay. And then let's choose another one. Never interrupt when someone else is speaking. If you could raise your hand if you think it's a behavior.
Okay, so for that one, we've got almost 80%.
Okay. So if you could put their hands down and then give people a chance to put your hand up if you think it's a category.
Okay, we have about 8% there.
So how many do we have, Ben?
That for that one, we have about 8%.
8%. Okay. All right. Thanks. Okay. So on reduced conflict in meeting, for those of you who voted that it was a category, I would say yes, that is correct, that it's a category. Because if you chose that as one of your team interactions, reduce conflict in meeting, it's really aspirational. It doesn't really give you anything to do in the meeting. Because remember, probably the reason why a leader is focusing on this, remember, these are the key leverage interactions. So probably the team is not doing this well right now. So if you put, as a leader, reduce conflict in meeting, they're probably not going to do any better. But if you do, for example, the one that I named before, never interrupt when someone's speaking, yes, that is a behavior. Is right. You would know the clipboard wielding scientist who's sitting in and watching that meeting. They would be able to tell whether someone was interrupting or not. So that could be an interaction that might really help a team know how to manage conflict more collaboratively. So it's at that level of specificity. Now, I also want to mention, because someone brought it up, someone said learn conflict management together as a team. That's a really good example of a task. Remember, I said that these interactions aren't tasks? In fact, if you think about team interactions and leader interactions, probably, there really are two sets of lists there. One is a task list, like, well, we're all going to take a conflict management seminar together. That would be a task that they would do, as opposed to a team interaction, which is how are we going to relate to each other when we're in conflict. And when I'm helping leaders develop a leadership vision, I'm not having them focus on the tasks. Now, while we're talking, they will think of these kinds of tasks, and those are really important to capture. And you want to help them capture those on another list. That wouldn't be part of this leadership vision, because really, leaders and teams can pretty much do their task list pretty well. It's where they need the help is identifying these actual very specific behaviors that are going to make a big difference for them, and to actually not only identify them but actually then pull it off. So that's why I'm focusing so much in terms of making these specific. So what I'm going to do is now give you examples. These are ones that leaders have developed who have actually used them in leadership visions that they've created. And one, you had to the max, which take more initiative. Everyone was mentioning something like this, which is bring a solution every time you present a problem. That specific leader had that. They were always bringing problems to him, and it was driving him crazy. And so he then laid out one of the team interactions was bring a solution to me every time you present a problem. And manage conflict collaboratively was resolve issues one-to-one or within the team. When you're at an impasse, then come to me as the leader together to break the impasse. And when you come together, share both of your views with me. So in other words, don't just give me your view, give me the other person's view. And that drives collaboration. So that gives a almost kind of a way to do it. There's a bit of a process embedded here, but it's also how there's an expectation about how they would interact with each other as well. Um, so now, if you think about these team interactions, uh, what would be leader interactions that could help produce these team interactions? You know, the leader is not just an incidental factor here. In order to have a team do something that they're not now doing, the leader may have to do something different as well. So I'm going to just give a full example of this, lay it all out, and then I'm going to have you have a chance to do some brainstorming with two others. So in terms of take more initiative and manage conflict collaboratively, again, here's a list of categories. So when I'm with a leader and asking them the question, oh, great, you know, you have now developed these team interactions and how you think this would really help. And again, I should probably say, let's see, yeah, if we go back to these team interactions, once they get this specific, you know, they've got their category, take more initiative, manage conflict collaboratively. They've got their specific behaviors, bring a solution every time, and, you know, resolve. And if you're at an impasse, come to me. Okay, great. They've got 2 of their 4 to 6 team interactions. But then you want to ask the question, why do you think these are the keys? Why are these, or how are these the high leverage interactions that are going to get you those business results and that are going to make that culture shift and that are going to really get you moving towards that business imperative? And this is where I love my job gets to be really fun at this point because I get to play devil's advocate as the coach. You know, I mean, you know, for those of us who have come out of the worlds of HR, OD, organizational development, consulting, psychology, you know, we think, yes, if people deal better with each other, then of course they'll get the business results. You know, it seems obvious to us, but and sometimes leaders see or think that it's obvious as well, but they're not making that extra link to, well, wait a minute. I mean, are you sure you have the right ones? Because we could come up with all kinds of great ways that teams could interact, but are they going to get you those results? So that's when I get to play the skeptic and say, well, you know, drop me the little breadcrumbs between take more initiative and creating the results you just named. And when they give me an answer, then I say, and so how is that going to be connected? And why do you think that? And so then what would happen? You know, and just keep asking the why and the how questions until it's clear that they really do see a connection. It's not that they've thought about the first thing. And in my own mind, I'm thinking, yeah, I could see where that would create that connection. So you want to help them get rigorous with this thinking as well. So it's not just pie in the sky. Yes, these are all good and lovely categories that we've now made into behaviors. So, you know, this could be another brainstormed list of leader interaction categories that, you know, the leader has talked through with me. All of these have been mentioned at some point in conversation with leaders. And if we were to take 2 of them, clarify expectations and resolve impasses, then, you know, it would be drilling down to see what would they be doing as leaders that would support the team to be doing their interactions. So again, you know, this is the clipboard, the scientists with the clipboard test. So the first one is sort of obvious, which would be set expectations regarding initiative and conflict management. You know, it's amazing how many of these leader and team interactions do seem really obvious, but they're necessary to call out because usually they're not being done. Usually the leader has not set out specific expectations regarding initiative and conflict management. And then, as you can see, these are the team behaviors that they've listed they want. So these would be the expectations. And then the other one, in terms of resolve impasses, what would be important for the leader to track for themselves is that they do resolve impasses, and that they only do it if they both come together for resolution. So in other words, the leader's ensuring that the team is actually doing this process. And this seems to be quite an important leader interaction for leaders who say things like, well, I've empowered my team, so I always send them back, they need to resolve it themselves. Well, that's great as a first step. But what if they can't come to resolution and their peers, they can't trump each other? Then really the leader could be avoiding their own appropriate role as having the authority to break an impasse. So this is where this leader interaction, though it seems obvious, could actually be a big challenge for a leader who's not used to doing that, and often wants to avoid conflict by sending them away to solve it together and away from them. So now, to give you a chance to do a little more brainstorming, let's look at this leader interaction category list again and choose two other ones, which is increase quality of decisions, because that's one way to help create better business results, and promote innovation. So you know the drill by now in terms of, it's got to meet the clipboard test. So if everyone could brainstorm specific, observable, measurable behaviors around increasing the quality of decisions. If a group is not making good quality decisions, what are some of the things the leader could be doing in order to increase the quality of decisions? And again, Ben, if you could report out some of these as they're coming in.
Okay, I'm just going to wait, give everyone a little chance to do that. Okay, innovation. When a new idea is put on the table, we will not reject without evaluating first. Ensure the whole team gives input to decisions. Compare the past, which compare the past with ongoing on. I'm not sure. Sorry, Barry. If you could write that again, that would be great. Ask for all relevant factor analysis. Be specific of desired outcome. Invite dissent and black hat thinking. Ensure each person in team has exposed their point of view. Require the use of a formal and consistent process for decision making. Take time to debate with the team at least two options before deciding. Create.
Ben, could you go back to the one before the debate one?
Okay, require the use of a formal and consistent process for decision making.
Yes.
And that was a fact based. Is that the one you wanted me to read?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Did Anne win?
No, no, I just didn't catch it.
Oh,
And if you
sorry.
could,
I thought.
if you could do two more.
Okay, no worries. I thought we had a winner. I thought that was the right answer. I'm joking. Okay, be clear about who has authority to decide before it's made. And we have. I'm just seeing if Barry already wrote it. Compare the past with what's going on with reality.
Okay, thank you. All right, so in terms of that list, the reason why I was asking for that one about require the use of a formal process, that is a little on the border, because what I like about it is the word require. Because oftentimes what needs to be on that leader list is a specific set of expectations. Often leaders these days, because they're so into empowering teams, they're sort of afraid of setting out strong or specific expectations. And, in some of these areas, a leader's expectations is really required. So to say require the use of a formal process would be the key there, the behavior of require. It's a little on the edge of being a task. in the sense of having to identify what that formal process is. But the require part is the strong part of that. And many of your other ones really are specific behaviors. So let's go on to promotes innovation. If you could, again, brainstorm very specific behaviors that are observable, what would it look like for a leader to be doing something that would help promote innovation in their team?
Okay, Mary, would you want me to read some of those out?
Yes, what have we got?
Okay, feature, applaud, and reward failure. Have team members go away and spend individual time thinking of solutions and ideas to bring back to the group. Plan regular brainstorming sessions. Ask their opinions and or options and insights. Don't shut down don't shut down a new idea and ask a question to understand the pros and cons. Reward new ideas. Make the whole team brainstorm. Use 6 thinking hats. I like that. 6 thinking hats. Um, demonstrate they allow follow through from the specific innovation idea.
And
Pro-
one more.
provide a free lunch to the best idea of the month.
I want to be on that team.
Depends where the lunch is.
Again, that one could be a task, right? I mean, it's like, okay, we're now going to install this new fun thing we're going to do. That reminds me of one that a category that had someone had named earlier about have a party. It's Friday. That's that same thing about, okay, this is a new task we're going to do. We're going to have parties every Friday. But yes, many of these are specific interactions that the leader can do. And just to give you, whoops, every time I mute to cough, I forget to go back to my screen here. Okay, so these are specific ones that leaders thought about in terms of, and again, well, I'll just go through this. Increase quality of decisions. Tell the team what decision style I'm using prior to a decision, and then have them summarize the decision once it's made. What I was going to say there, which I'd like to now, is these are not the right answers. Like the answers you gave are not wrong answers. Anything that's a specific behavior is a right answer. Then the question needs to be, which of these specific behaviors is going to get you the farthest? Remember, these are going to be high leverage. So the two I'm mentioning here are just examples of the specific behaviors that specific leaders chose for their very specific and customized situation. So what you have named as increasing quality of decisions and promoting innovation, many of these are specific behaviors and could be exactly the right thing that a leader could be choosing to put on their leadership vision. So I just want to be clear about that. And then promote innovation. A leader wanted and expected their team to give input and feedback to each other outside their disciplines. So to give an example of, I did talk with one of my clients that I mentioned at the beginning, and as a skeptic, why do you think that if increasing the quality of decisions is going to help you get where you need, and that if you share the decision style you're using prior to decision and they summarize it, that it's going to get you anywhere? And this was all about the leader who needed to increase market share. And it was very clear to him that this very specific couple of behaviors, sharing a decision style up front and then having his team summarize the decision, would increase the quality of their decisions and would also speed up implementation, because they wouldn't take so long and floundering, not even clear sometimes whether they were making a decision. And that this way of promoting innovation actually increased the quality of their marketing programs, because there were no sacred cows. He was asking everybody, including, I mean, not just the marketing team, but everybody, HR, community relations, the finance people, when they got together, They were contributing ideas outside of their own discipline, and that he was pretty sure, it was a very strong hypothesis, that these were the behaviors that were really going to help them with their dilemma of having to increase market share. So before we go much farther, I just want to give people a chance to make any comments or ask any questions about this whole idea of how to talk with a leader about leader and team interactions, where you're moving them from first identifying categories, brainstorming big categories, and then moving it to specific behavior. So Ben, if you could call out any questions that people have about this. We're going to have a chance to do more general Q&A closer to the end, but any specific questions about this?
Okay, I'm just going to give everyone a few moments just to type out your questions. How much time do you spend with a leader to help him or her define his or her leadership vision?
It depends how much help they need, whether it's just a vision or whether it's going to be part of a whole like live team coaching process. Because if it's going to be a live team coaching process and the team is involved, then there's kind of a couple iterations that happen around the vision. So that something like that would take as many as 8 hours, like several sessions that are sort of iterative developments of their vision. If it's working with a leader one-to-one and more just helping them clarify their thinking, then it can be a 2 hour, 2 to 3 hour process that I might do in a couple of sessions.
Thank you, Mary Beth. Do you have an example of how you get people past these are senior people, they should know this, in inverted commas?
Yeah, I mean, I get that comment all the time. And one way to talk to a leader about that is that if they should know this, then you'd think they would already be doing it, right? I mean, it, whatever you've, no, this is talking to the leader directly, whatever you've been doing with them, if you've been talking to them in this more general kind of category, big picture thinking, it's gotten you as far as you've gotten. And so something more specific needs to happen with your group, because right now either they're misinterpreting what you mean, or they just don't have an idea at all what you mean. And uh, life in business and companies and organizations is so complex now that even if you could pull this off in the past, complex situations require very customized situations. So again, what you mean by a big picture category may not apply unless you've found very specific ways to describe it in the situation you're in. So it's helping a leader confront that they need to be doing more in-depth thinking than they've been doing.
Okay, thank you very much. Maybe one last question before we move on.
Okay.
Do you consider that it helps if from categories and behaviors new practices develop? So let me ask that question again because I was a bit of a story. Do you
Mm-hmm.
consider that it helps if from new categories and behaviors new practices develop?
Absolutely. That's what usually happens. I mean, this is what I mean by this is the real creative part of this piece, in terms of once you start drilling down, there is that, that the question beforehand is really talking about leaders' resistance to even doing this kind of exercise. And in this world that we're in about the fire, ready, aim, this is an aiming exercise. This is a planning exercise. This is getting to look at their world and figuring out where they want to go. And that's counter to the pace and energy of what people are doing now. But it's often required to be able to pull off the results they need to pull off. So what's great is what happens when they do this work about going from category to specific behaviors. There's a real creativity that happens in the conversations between leader and coach, because they start to be thinking in different ways. They start imagining their team and themselves acting in different ways, and then they and their teams come up with different processes to make this happen. And it's very exciting work that way. Okay, so I'm going to move on then. Now, these leader expectations, and I'm speaking about these specific team interactions, and then what they've created for themselves in terms of leader interactions, they really do require this backbone and heart. Again, the ability to, have a position, state their position, and stay connected to their teams. These are really the leadership challenges that a leader will face all through this process. And in fact, it's a leadership challenge when you hear a leader saying, these are high level people, why should I have to tell them? They're actually on the brink of facing a leadership challenge. And part of the avoidance is that resistance. So, and part of the avoidance is that there are leadership challenges embedded in every single one of the expectations that they're going to put on their leadership vision. So I just want to run through an example of this. So we've talked about 2 team interactions that leaders have used. Take more initiative, bring a solution every time you present a problem. Well, that means that they have to require of their teams to have more backbone themselves. They have to come with a position. They have to be clearer about their thinking. They can't be passive and dependent on the leader anymore. And it's requiring the leader to have the backbone to say, when a team member still comes in being more passive, say, you know what, I'm going to send you back until you have a position, and make another time with me, and we'll talk about it once you have a position. That takes more backbone. In terms of this whole idea of how to manage conflict collaboratively, it takes more heart to listen to each other and to be able, as a team member, to share the other person's point of view with my boss when I don't agree with it. That takes a lot of heart, a lot of ability to stay connected. And again, it takes backbone of the leader to insist that they actually do that. So, it's easy for the leader to get out of their own challenge, to just let teams and themselves do what they've been doing. But if they're putting these kinds of team behaviors on their vision, it means they need to manage to it. And, here are a couple of the behaviors we've talked about that the leader needs to do. In terms of increasing quality of decisions, they need to have enough backbone to have a position about what kind of a decision it is going to be. They have to do enough thinking prior to a decision to think, do I want it to be consensus? Is it going to be consultative? Is it going to be a majority vote? They have to be clear enough in themselves to know that. And then to expect, this is more heart, to have the team summarize, because the team's got to be a good listener to know what the decisions have been that have been made. And in terms of promoting innovation, it takes backbone to give ideas that aren't in your area of expertise. And it takes heart to stay connected to others who don't have expertise and are giving you ideas. And it takes, again, backbone on the leader's part to actually insist and expect people to do this. So that's where these leadership challenges are really embedded in the whole exercise of creating a leadership vision. So, I get resistance from leaders, and it comes out as impatience often. Like, again, as one of you mentioned in your questions, like, why do I even have to be doing this? That is all about leader resistance to, oh my gosh, I may have to do something differently, and right now I don't know what it is. And when it gets identified, it's going to be a challenge for me to actually do. In terms of for a leader to do this or coaches to help leaders do this, there are 4 skills that are needed to be able to create a good leadership vision. And one is that as leaders think out loud, the ability to learn to identify and capture these brainstorming ideas, because they belong to one of the 5 elements of leadership vision. You can put them in one of those 5 buckets, even as people are just talking, even when people don't yet even know what the 5 elements are. As they're talking to their coach, coaches can start capturing, oh, well, that sounds like a business initiative. Whoa, that's a leader interaction. Oh, that's a specific business result. And helping to just organize thinking this way is one skill that's necessary. Another is to know the difference between a behavioral category and a specific interaction. That's why I've been working it so much in this session, because it really does make a difference between a powerful leadership vision and one that's kind of milquetoast and won't help the leader create the results that they want. A third is to hone in on the most critical behaviors that are going to drive the results. So, they may have brainstormed 10 different behaviors that they would like to see their team doing. Now, which ones are really going to be the most critical? And again, being in a conversation with someone who can play the devil's advocate and the skeptic to really help the leader clarify which are really going to be the most critical behaviors. And then the last one, which is always important to remember, is that it's the leader's vision and not the coach's. And so as much as I would love for them to include something on that list, if they don't see it as one of their key behaviors or results or something the team needs to do, then it doesn't go on the list. The list, when I say list, I mean the whole leadership vision itself. It really needs to be the leader's vision and something that they're going to drive. So in terms of using this leadership vision method, I want to talk a little bit about the results that those 3 clients I mentioned on the front end got. And they got it by developing this leadership vision and then also working over time in a coaching relationship with them. And there was that CEO where the organization needed to turn around. It was bleeding money like crazy. They were going to, they were in the red. They were thinking they may have to close down. And there was such a turnaround situation because the leader had identified this vision and the key interactions that he and they needed to do, that they actually wound up at year's end with $500,000 in the bank as opposed to being in the red. The second one, the new director of ops, was able to redesign a product cycle that had less time in their time frame. They were able to make their revenue goal. And rather than her boss seeing her as maybe a promotional mistake, she was actually seen as a star leader in the organization and was promoted to further higher roles in the organization. And then the situation where the organization had to change how they related to customers and needed to increase their market share, they did increase their market share. In fact, they were better than any other region in the company for that year. So, this is, in some ways, this is quite straightforward, a simple process, but it's not an easy one because of what we've been talking about, having the leader really do a planning exercise. This is planning before execution, having them think and get more specific, going from categories to specific behaviors, and then also really having the maturity and the fortitude to address their own leadership challenges, which are embedded in all the interactions, both on their side and on the team interaction side, because it's their job to ensure that the team actually will enact these interactions. So in terms of creating a leadership vision and what we've talked about and the ability to integrate leadership challenges with business results, this would be the time just for any general questions that people have on any of this process.
Okie dokie. Thank you very much for that, Mary Beth. Um, if you have any questions, please put them in there. Um, how do you recommend that the senior leader share these behavioral examples with their direct reports or their teams, Mary Beth?
Well, I um, I recommend that they come up with a draft of a leadership vision. So they've done their best thinking themselves first, working with a coach, and then they would take it to their teams and share it with them, and then get the team's input, because the team is often closer to the action, so there may be some ideas and points of view, perspectives that the team has that as the leader listens to them, they're like, oh yeah, that's I hadn't thought of that. I'm gonna edit my vision, and so then they will come up with a final version and then share that with their team, and that's what they would actually get alignment around and commitment from their team so that they can move forward and actually accomplish that business imperative and cultural shift.
Oh, sorry, I just realised I've been talking and I was muted. Um, how do okay? How can you balance several different backbone positions?
Hmm. I'm not really clear what that question means. Could they type in? Is it possible to type in a little more clarity on that? What they're looking for there?
Okay, no worries. Jose, if you could do that, or Josie. Um, okay, how often do leaders and or their teams measure the new behaviors and the impact?
Oh, that sounds a little bit like a different question, but well, that's what I love about this leadership vision is that I think of it as a map that is
I think I asked the
developed
same
on the
question
front
twice.
end,
Sorry, I
and
asked the same.
then they can use.
Sorry, I think
Sure.
I asked the same question pretty much twice because the person actually asked it twice. I've gone through, but please carry on because you can give a more detailed answer now.
Okay. Um, so then they can use this leadership vision to as a way to measure how they've been doing, and then so it depends on the time frame. I'm often working. I say it's like an 8 to 18 month um, time frame, and I'm often working with clients for 8 to 12 months. So they might do a check-in somewhere between month 1 and 6, and then do another check-in month 6 and 9, and then a measurement check-in at 12 months. So that might be kind of a periodic check-in. And then actually I have a chapter in my book on this, um, executive coaching with backbone and heart. You can use the same leadership vision as a way to calculate ROI at the end of a coaching contract. So after the measurements have all come in, like at that 12-month period or 18-month period, then you can be in a conversation with your client about the ROI of the coaching on those measurements. And I don't want to get into that now, but there's a whole chapter if that's interesting to you.
Thank you, Mary Beth. Um, will you be able to give us an example of a leadership vision?
Um, you mean, I'm not, you mean like sending an example or posting an example?
Um, I believe that's what they might be asking. An
Okay.
actual case study or a live example, perhaps.
Uh-huh. Well, hmm.
Not to worry
Well,
if not.
yeah, well, I'm thinking probably the easiest way to do it is that if they were to go on the website that's leadingwithbackboneandheart.com, there's a place where leadership vision is actually one of the products. That would be probably the fastest way they could do it, because there's a very full example in that.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any changes in your model for non-profit organizations?
Oh, that's a great question. You know what? There's actually not a change, because nonprofit organizations are learning more and more that they need to have these kinds of very specific business results. I mean, they don't name them as business results, they'll name them as organizational outcomes. But one way that nonprofits have learned to survive more is to be very specific in terms of these quality, quantity, time, and cost or money categories. And it's really helped nonprofits to think that way rather than very general mission driven, uh, what they might think of as outcomes, but are actually mission driven categories. So this has been very useful for nonprofit organizations.
Okay, maybe two more questions, um, if that's okay, Mary Beth.
Sure.
Okay, how do you go about facilitating the leader's discovery of their personal roadblocks, so values, beliefs, assumptions, commitments, to moving their ideas to actions? So how do you go about facilitating the leader's discovery of their personal roadblocks to moving their ideas to actions?
Yeah. Well, there's a couple ways there. Sort of things that I wind up doing almost with every client. And one roadblock we've already talked about, where they, in the conversation, they're showing resistance to getting more specific because they're already feeling some of that challenge. And so one way is what I've already said, to talk through, help the leader realize that whatever success they've gotten or lack of success, they've gotten through what they've been doing so far, which means they have to do something else. So then what is the something else? So then a second way is to think about, you can help a leader define their leadership vision by starting with any of these five elements. You don't have to start with the business imperative. You can start wherever their energy is. And often their energy is kind of, well, they're focused on their team, and they're usually focused, they're not happy with their team, like they're blaming their team. My team's not doing this, my team's not doing that. And in the past, I was a little like a positive cop. I would try to kind of talk them into, well, that's sort of being negative about your team. Let's think about more. And, that really didn't get me very far. Now I've learned kind of an Aikido approach where you use the person's energy to, instead of against them, sort of with them. So if a leader is kind of resistant to thinking about their own challenges and is way focused on the team challenges, great, start there, go with it, go where their energy is. And if you help them create a list of negatives, my team isn't showing initiative, my team can't deal with their conflicts, then that becomes a really easy list, because you could just take off the negative. Great. If the team's not showing initiative, then what would you like them to be doing? I'd like them to be showing initiative. If they're not handling their conflicts well, what would you like them to be doing? I'd like them to be handling their conflicts collaboratively. So then you're creating a very positive team list, and then it's a fairly easy step to sort of back into what they need to be doing. So what do you need to be doing then to help them be more collaborative in conflict? What do you need to be doing to help them initiate more? So that's another way, sort of back them into facing their challenges. And then a third way is to give them feedback right in the moment about how I'm experiencing them as we're in this conversation. So I can give them a little taste of what it's like to be interacting with them. And it's actually kind of a qualifier for me, because I see what they do with feedback. Gives me a sense of, how defensive or how open to learning are they. And it's a qualifier in the sense of I don't work with clients who are so defensive that they're not open to learning. But on the other hand, I do work with clients who have resistance and can seem at first defensive, but then when given the feedback, they'll learn about it and be open to learning. And then they're open to brainstorming. Well, what can I do when I get this type of defensive that I'm showing you? That's something I like to put on my list. What can I be doing? What very specific behaviors can I be doing? And I'm in a group meeting with my team and I start acting like this. Then, boy, that's the gold when you can help them brainstorm something that they've been resisting in the past.
Fantastic. Okay. One final question. Okay. Do you use ongoing measurement for fast feedback loops?
Not consistently. I haven't. What I have done is I will poll a group about how how is it going, and get feedback somewhere in that first 6 months. And then as one of the and that can be a same poll that's happening throughout. It's not fast. It may be every 2 or 3 months. But then another way to or a way to enhance that is that at the end, not only ask them the same poll, but ask them, knowing what you know now about how you are interacting as a team and the way you were interacting as a team and the way your leader was before, how would you rank where you were at the beginning? Because often when their first poll may or may not be as um, um, uh, true as because like being more collaborative in their conflict management, they may not have a realistic view of themselves until after they've learned what that really means. And then they're able to view, oh, I see, it was 9 months ago when we couldn't do that. We were actually at a 2. I thought we were at a 6, but we were actually at a 2. Sometimes I'll do that, so to double check their initial way that they were measuring themselves. It can often give an added, enhanced perspective on themselves as a team.
Super. Thank you very much, Mary Beth. What a fantastic session. Um, what I would
I'm happy. I'm happy to keep this conversation going on the Summit Facebook page if people want to continue comments or questions there.
That would be fantastic. That's what I was just about to say. So I know there were many, many, many people that did not have their questions answered. I think in total, let me just give you a stat. You had 351 questions in this session. So just a
Whoa.
few. So for those that did not have their questions answered, I apologize. Please jump onto the Facebook wall, facebook.com/WBECS, and ask some questions. You have an offer of some direct communications and some conversations building up on there with Mary Beth O'Neill. Don't not take advantage of this awesome offer. So jump onto facebook.com/WBECS, ask your questions, and start a lovely conversation. So, wow, that is the end of this week's session of WBEX. I hope you've all enjoyed it. It's been pretty amazing. I think this was probably the best week of sessions we've had since WBEX started 3 years ago. And we have another amazing week next week. So really, really looking forward to that. We Please also, by the way, don't just ask questions on the Facebook wall. Please also post your feedback about this session. I know I'm getting lots of comments here saying amazing session. Wow, very focused, excellent, very helpful. Post that in the Facebook wall as well. It'd be great, so that everyone else can see that as well.
And
Um,
Ben,
yes, Mary Beth.
I forgot one more thing actually. And
One
if
more
they could
thing.
post this one, if they could post this as well, it'd be great. Any takeaways or learnings or applications of this session, I would love to see as well.
Yes, there you go. What a great addition. Yeah, so any takeaways, learnings, um, what you're actually doing by posting those up there is actually showing to your network what you are learning as well. So they'll be able to see that you're getting some deep applications and some serious learning from this event that they're also going to benefit from. Okay, so that's the end of the week. It's Friday. I'm back in the UK and I'm gonna go and hang out with my mom and pop for the night. We're gonna be watching some Sopranos. How about that? We keep saying we're gonna watch some telly. I don't normally watch TV, but we're gonna watch some Sopranos tonight. So how about that? Maybe have a beer. So whatever you're doing this weekend, have an amazing time. Get rested. I know it's going to be very tempting to spend the whole weekend watching the recordings from the sessions you missed, which is awesome. But make sure you get some time to relax and also take in and look at how you're going to apply your learning as well. Don't just keep taking it all in. Be sure to make this a practical learning experience. Anyhow, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. Have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you next week for the final week of WBEX 2013. Okay, everyone, take care. Speak soon,
Thanks, Ben.
and thank you one last time. A big, massive thank you to Mary Beth for such a brilliant session. It was very much appreciated. Thank you. Take care, everyone. Bye bye.